So what we're going to start with is something called an inline style. So let's get rid of this class and this ID. And these inline styles only apply to the div to which the attribute has been applied. So for example, to do this we use the style attribute, and we then type in a style. And you'll notice that having opened up some quotes, we then get a number of options here, and Dreamweaver actually shows us all the styles that are available. I'm going to just use one called font size to start with. Okay, so that's a style that I'm going to be applying to this div. And then again, Dreamweaver shows us a whole load of options, and we can either define it in pixels, we can define it in some sort of keyword, so large, medium, small, etc. Okay, I'm just going to use a pixel number, so let's put 14 pixels. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do. There we go. So what I'm saying here is that I'm going to apply a font size of 14 pixels to this div. Okay, so any text contained within this div is going to have a font size of 14. So let's just check to see how that looks. Go back to Internet Explorer. There we go. Okay, and this here's my first paragraph. There we go. So just to prove that it's correct, let's change it to something a lot smaller. Let's go for 6 pixels. Then we'll just refresh the page. And there we go. You can see there we go. There we've got my text at a size of 6 pixels, a lot smaller than it was before. So we'll go back to Dreamweaver and let's put it back to a more sensible size. So we've applied a font size of 12 pixels to that div and anything that's contained within it, and now I'm going to apply a style to the span tag and any text within it, and I'm going to use the color star, and just note the American spelling. Now for a property or value of our color, we can either specify it using RGB values, so red then green then blue, and actually Dreamweaver tries to help us out by giving us a palette that we can select. Okay, so for example, if I wanted it to be red, then you notice we've got to use a hash symbol. That just tells the browser that we're going to be specifying it in this RGB format, and then we have 2 digits for the red and 2 digits for the green and 2 digits for the amount of blue. So we just save that, and again let's go back to our page, and hopefully our text will be bigger. And you also notice now that the text within our span element is now red. So this is called an inline style. Okay, we're applying the style inline, and it only gets applied to the span or the div element that we specified. So therefore, if we wanted all of our divs to have a font size of 12, then using this method, every single div would have to start with div and then style and then equals and then font size 12 pixels. So as you can see, this is quite a long-winded method of applying all of our styles, because for every single div and for every single span we have to specify exactly the style that we want. And although we're only applying 1 or 2 styles here, there's still quite a lot of extra code that's been added. You can imagine that as we get more and more complicated, we apply lots and lots of styles to each div, that we end up having very large amounts of code within our HTML. A better method than using an inline style is to use an internal style sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of all the styling information to start with. And the purpose of a internal style sheet is to specify all the styling information, normally within the head section of our HTML document. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? Well, within our head section, we start using a style tag, and then we tell it its type, and we're going to say that it's a cascading style sheet type. Okay, and we can also then close that style, and we're going to put all our style information here within these two tags. So we need a way of being able to link styles that we define within these style tags to the divs that we have defined later on in our document. And the way that we do this is to use the ID and the class that I introduced a bit earlier on. So let's re-enter the ID that I used before. So I think I said ID paragraph 1 and then span, and I'm going to use class here. And we're just going to call it important. Okay, well how do we actually refer to these IDs and these classes within our style sheet? Okay, well they're slightly different. So for an ID, you put a hash sign and then the name of the ID. So paragraph 1. We now open up some curly brackets, and within these curly brackets we put all of our style definitions. So for example, we had font size, and I think we had 14 pixels. There we go. And we then just end it by starting a new line. Now, if you want to define a class style, then instead of using a hash, we use a dot. And so we'd use dot important, and I think we defined a color of red. There we go. Okay, so this important style will get applied to the important class. Okay, and you notice it's dot here before, which means that we're applying it to a class. And then above that we have a hash that means that we're applying it to an ID.